a man wrote the Bible?
A whore is what she was.
If it's a legitimate rape,
it makes you a slut, right?
Cooking can be fun.
Hey, I'm proud of a man.
This week in misogyny.
Wow, I gotta follow that up. I feel like I should sing This Week in Misogyny now or something. But I'm not gonna, and you don't want me to. Instead, we're gonna talk about all the great advice menfolk have for us. And my guess is that most of you saw my first example of that over the weekend when Kirk Cameron made social media waves by offering up a little think nugget to all the wives out there. But the craziest thing about this slice of misogyny is that it came immediately after the last 3 sane neurons in his head banded together to tell him not to say it. So the first half of the quote is some advice for the husbands. They are to, quote, love their wives and not to tell their wives that they need to submit to them, end quote. But then he goes on to disregard his own advice at a pace that would embarrass the memento guy and adds, quote, wives are to honor and respect and follow their husband's lead, end quote. And just in case the advice didn't sound dangerous yet, he added that this counts no matter how the wife is being treated. But I don't want to leave anyone with the impression that you need testicles to offer up terrible, dangerous, sexist, God-infused advice. And for an example of that, I'll tell you the tale of Tawan McCarty. She was invited to the Redstone Arsenal Army base in Alabama as part of a presentation on sexual harassment and responses to sexual abuse. Now, the plan was for her to talk about her experience as a sex trafficking victim, or at least that was the plan of the people who invited her there to give the talk. Her plan, apparently, was to use the opportunity to illegally promote her religion. According to a civilian employee that attended the event, McCarty explained that, quote, the only way to truly overcome the horrors of rape and sex trafficking is to have Jesus as your king, end quote. In other words, if you're still suffering from PTSD or anything, you have your evil pagan atheist gods to thank for that. But I don't want to spend all this time on bad advice without offering up anything in the way of good advice. So let me give a few words of wisdom to all the ladies listening. Stay the fuck out of Oklahoma, because apparently in Oklahoma, men can legally rape your head. So, for those of you who don't already know what I'm talking about, in a unanimous decision last week, an appeals court in Oklahoma ruled that state law doesn't forbid forced oral sex with a victim who is completely unconscious. It stems from a case where a 16-year-old girl got a ride home from a 17-year-old boy. She passed out along the way and woke up later in a hospital with the staff conducting a sexual assault examination. These tests would later reveal traces of the boy's semen on the back of her leg and around her mouth, and this, of course, led Tulsa County prosecutors to charge the boy with forcible oral sodomy. And as if that wasn't already fucked up enough for us, here's where we get to the really crazy part. The trial judge dismissed the case, one can only imagine from inside an evil lair, because, quote, we will not, in order to justify prosecution of a person for an offense, enlarge a statute beyond the fair meaning of its language, end quote. So, for those of you confused by the legalese here, what he means is, I'm sure the lawmakers would have mentioned all the orifices individually if they'd considered dick in the mouth rape. And the worst part of this story is that the appeals court agreed. Because according to the fucktards codifying the rape culture in Oklahoma, he's technically right. As of 2016, there are laws in their state protecting unconscious victims of vaginal rape, but that's it. So while I go in the other room and make voodoo dolls of the entire state legislature out of cat shit and butter, I'll hand things back over to Noah, Heath, and Eli.